Hi, I'm Barry Melancon, President and CEO of the AICPA, and welcome to our discussion today on decision-making and the human elements of decision-making. And I'm here with my good friend and colleague, John Engels, who is with Leadership Coaching. And John, it's good to have you, so
Thank
welcome.
you. It's great to be here.
And you've studied the human element in so many different ways. It's one of your true core competencies, and how groups of people make decisions, how individuals make decisions. What's some of your thoughts from that standpoint in the business context?
Yeah, in a general way, I mean, I think there are three resources that every person has to draw on when they make a decision. The first one is the brain, facts, thinking. The second is feelings, and the third is the gut, which is kind of this imagination, intuition area, which is less well understood, but still, something that's very important to pay attention to. So you have these three, and the question is always, how do they work together, and what do you listen to when? And in terms of business decisions, it's very important, I think, to lead with facts and data and make sure you're getting the information you need, and then turn to the other two.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it is about sort of melding those three together, though, because even in a business sense, you would not say decision-making is devoid of those feelings and intuition that leaders really have to bring to the table.
Exactly. Yet, I hear some people say, I'm just going to trust my feelings. That's good, but your feelings can be wrong if they're taken apart from your best thinking. So there has to be integration. That's the key with any decision, to listen to all three of those voices and make sure that the thinking is really, the 2/3 of the weight of the brain is the prefrontal cortex, which drives thinking. So that assumes, I guess, that thinking is pretty darn important.
One of the things that I often struggle with, and I see people struggle with, is also, though, when you have facts, is how do you ensure you don't overreact to some aberration in facts versus that being a leading indicator? There's those two give and takes in that context that I think is very important. A customer, in the case of the organization, some members having a feeling, but they might not be fully informed about the facts. And how do you react to that and still be a good decision maker?
Well, one of the things is just to realize that the loudest voices can often be wrong. So just because people feel strongly about something, there's no correlation between strength of belief and accuracy of belief. No correlation whatsoever. So that has to be taken into account. Just because people feel strongly and maybe have kind of one-offs, they feel different than the crowd, that doesn't mean that they're accurate.
So that would apply also in a leadership team, where one person might have, as a group, you're addressing a decision, one person may have great passion, maybe even great passion and knowledge, and then that sort of permeates with the strength of voice. It doesn't necessarily make that person right.
And yes, and this is kind of complex, because at the same time, the majority can also be wrong. And there could be one person in the group who sways the group because that person has some level of insight into something, some experience. So it's not, I don't want to make this overly simplistic, that the person who's distant from the majority opinion is always wrong. I don't think that either.
Yeah, so there's no set formula.
No set formula.
It really is with a sort of an element of experience. But there's another factor that I think comes into that, is particularly when you have a significant emphasis on facts, that some people who want to avoid making a decision can use constant questioning and constant search for still more and still more and still more facts as a way of not making a decision.
Yes, and it's such a common thing that I see, is people they don't want to make the decision. They just want a little more time, one more fact, few more facts, and I call this the leap of faith. At some point, you have to make the decision. It might be not the best decision, it might be the wrong decision, but no decision is probably going to turn against you at some point too.
You call it the leap of faith. I always use the term, the pursuit of perfection is the enemy of progress. And I talk about that in the context of the speed of the world, and that sometimes the failure to do something is worse than getting more and more facts to make a decision. It's the old, if you asked enough people and you were Henry Ford, they would have never designed an automobile. It's the old adage from that standpoint.
I wonder, just as we wrap up here, whether, to what extent, this is just a question that I think about a lot, to what extent anxiety drives decisions in a way that people don't even understand. Just being nervous or being uncomfortable and permitting that process to really drive a decision process, as opposed to calming down, taking your time, and trying to get the necessary data you need.
Yeah, I find also there's a piece of it, as you say, as we wrap it up, about the notion of decision making in today's world, that because of things like social media and this sort of this constant vortex of emotion and information, that the second guessing is at an all-time high as well.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
so that sort of mutes decision-making as well.
It does. There's this sort of collective insecurity we seem to have, that we're never going to get it right. We might make a mistake. And I think you have to be okay with the possibility that you just might get it wrong, but it's okay to go forward.
Yeah. So good decision-making, facts, feelings, and intuition, and you have to make the leap of faith always. And clearly, you have to do it in today's world with a speed, or at least a respect to the speed that the world is spitting at today. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again another time.